Okay. A very good evening to all of you. A warm welcome to this webinar series, which we are celebrating as part of our Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav. As we all know, Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav is a Government of India initiative to celebrate and commemorate 75 years of Indian independence. This celebration was officially kick-started by our Honorable Prime Minister Sri Narendra Modi ji on 12th March 2021, and we will be continuing until our 75th Independence Day, that is 15th August 2023. As part of this celebration, ICA GAP has organized a series of webinars, and today we are in the 5th lecture of this webinar series, and we are very fortunate that we have Dr. PARVISH Pandya, one of the known agri-biodiversity expert, environmentalist, wildlife conservation expert, and an academician. In this webinar series, we already had 4 lectures of diverse topic from eminent speakers like Dr. Zamiruddin Shah, Dr. Anindya Datta, Dr. Nilotpal Ghosh, and Dr. Kaushik Banerjee. So in this webinar series, sir, I welcome you on behalf of ICAR NRC Grapes and also on my personal behalf. And I also welcome all the people who are joined this webinar through this Zoom link and also through WhatsApp live program. So now I request our Honorable Director, Dr. Aji Somkumar, to introduce the speaker and to give his introductory remark. Sir, up to you, sir.
Good afternoon, all. Yeah, today is, as Dr. Shabir told, that today is 5th lecture in a series of 75 years of Indian independence. We'll be completing 75 years of Indian independence during August 2022. So, Government of India as well as our headquarter ICR has asked us to conduct series of programs. Likewise, so 75 programs we will be organizing. And among this, today is the 5th one. And we are really lucky to have a chief guest, today's guest speaker, Professor Dr. Pandya. Sir, I welcome you.
Thank you
For this very good occasion that we are meeting, if not physically, at least online we are here. And today's lecture is on biodiversity, conservation, and climate change. I welcome all my colleagues to participate in this lecture. And just to give a brief about Dr. Pandya, he is formerly Vice Principal and Associate Professor in the Zoology Division in Bharatiya Vidya Bhavan's College in Mumbai, Andheri. He has guided several projects, and he edited even Sanctuary Asia and Club magazines too. Since 2020 July, he has been appointed as a consultant vice president with Dove's Law Groups USA. Now, by knowing this, by reading this, you can understand the personality. He is the coordinator for MSc programs in biodiversity, also, wildlife conservation and management at Bhavan's College. And he is a PhD in zoology and a senior academician too. He has been teaching at various levels for more than even 40 years. And by this, he has become a very good resource person in the field of nature, environmental science, and biodiversity. Climate change and even teacher training, environmental conservations, and he has passed in his interest to students also, to students, teachers, all his subordinates, his environment lovers, all these things. He has given many talks, audiovisuals. Then he has published given his interviews through newspaper also. He has published his CDs, radios, and television also. He has got developed a great admiration towards wildlife and nature. He has traveled in India as well as abroad also. He has a good passion in photography, music, singing, traveling, and yoga and cycling also. There are many other things. And 2010, he was conferred RBS Sanctuary Green Teacher Awards. So, sir, with the small biodata, I welcome you, sir, and I welcome all my participants for this lecture, and hope all these participants will get benefited from your lecture. And we will have, after your lecture is over, we will have some discussion also, so that we will get some more sight into that one.
Sure.
So I stop here and hand over this gathering to Dr. Pandya. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. And I'm indeed very honored to listen to my introduction, and also to see several participants whom I know, some of my friends with whom, in fact, Dr. Babli is my classmate from master's degree course in zoology when I did my master's and my PhD. And there are several other people who have the love for wildlife, and that's how they're coming here. So it's indeed a pleasure to address this August gathering, not just on this Zoom, but also on Facebook, where people are seeing live. Being extremely familiar with Zoom platform as well as social media, even before the pandemic, I would request participants to first of all mute themselves. In case you have any questions, please reserve them for later on, or you can put it in the chat box. I request the co-host, Dr. Shabir, to take over the admitting of the participants, so that I don't, I've been doing that because I'm very familiar with this entire thing, so don't worry at all. So I was doing it up till now, but now I'll be concentrating on my talk. So what I will do now is, the topic is biodiversity conservation, and I have been living, breathing, talking, eating, sleeping about biodiversity since more than 42, 43 years. In fact, I became a teacher much before I actually started teaching formally in a college. And that's because my passion for wildlife and the bug which had bitten me made me start giving this bug and the fever to anybody and everybody who used to come in contact with me. And as we say that the time is ticking and there's little time to save whatever wildlife we have, let's also look at the time which is ticking now. And so I will directly share my presentation with you. Okay, introduce this. Yeah. So two aspects that I'm going to talk about, but they are highly interconnected: biodiversity conservation. I'll just define, not to be very sure that everybody understands the meaning of the term conservation, but basically conservation means using only the interest and not eating away into the capital. So we have biodiversity, and this biodiversity is in the form of bacteria, fungi, plants, mushrooms, animals, all living, not just things, what we call as organisms, but also in the form of habitats, ecosystems, niches, huge biogeographic zones, and so on. So all that assemblage makes biodiversity. And conserving biodiversity is one of the challenges that we have been facing since last 40 years. And it has become imperative for the present day generation to look at these very closely and to understand how this is affecting climate change and vice versa, climate change affecting biodiversity. Now, climate change is something that we all know, but I'm going to talk about it slightly later. In this pandemic, many of us are living in cities and urban establishments, and there we feel locked. But in Mumbai or in other cities, there are vistas, there are possibilities of seeing biodiversity very easily and very closely. Even when you open your windows, you see so much of greenery around. If you have a campus or if you have some trees, and you might see the birds or insects or butterflies, and so many things are there outside. And I used to give literally lots and lots of talks to people that don't feel miserable that you're locked in a cage, and just look outside your window, open the windows of your mind, and start looking at even smaller forms of flora and fauna, which probably you were oblivious to because you were so much busy in your day-to-day rote and mundane lifestyle. So there were birds chirping in your garden, there were butterflies visiting flowers, and here in Mumbai there are these zoanthids and other animals which you see even at Haji Ali, for example, this photograph as it is. But apart from that, there are these huge mammals and whales and dolphins and so on. And I might just leave you by saying that there's an entire video which shows how whales are controlling climate change because of the entire web of life and the entire food chain that they process through. And it is unimaginable how scientists have found out these small and small links which lead to a clarity in the picture of the big picture, what we call as climate change now. Just look at the video. Yes, I was really fortunate. This is my picture, and this is not a very old picture. This is March first week. I'm working very closely with communities and ecosystems, and this is a picture of Kashmir, March 2021. Yes, you got it right. Uh, I was lucky to go to several places because with communities, we are trying to bring about livelihood generation among them, and indirectly, therefore, the collateral benefit of that is biodiversity conservation. But what biodiversity offers to us is a myriad forms of life. If you are close to Bhimashankar, which in Pune you are obviously, go to Bhimashankar, go to Mathiran, go to Mahabaleshwar, and there is where you can see these bioluminescent fungi or mushrooms. And there are also sometimes barks of trees on which you can see these very tiny bioluminescent fungus. And be in the middle of the night or when in Amavasya night, you can see the glow of these tiny organisms. I mean, uh, I am a scientist, but I'm awed, I'm spellbound by the gifts that nature gives us in the form of these superb plants and animals which have their own story. I mean, I can conduct a 1 hour talk on just mushrooms and fungi and bioluminescence and all that, but this is not a platform. I'm just going to introduce very briefly to you that biodiversity is so vast that one lifetime is not enough just to study a single tree and the alkaloids and the chemicals which are produced by a tree and the role that it plays in the ecosystem, in economics, in culture, in mythology, and so many other things. Trust me, I have enjoyed my 45 years of, I don't call it teaching, I say sharing my experiences, because I translate every science into a story. And my students remember the stories that I used to tell them, which sounds like a scientific story, but we talk about fishes, we talk about these shoals of these blue-lined snapper fish. I mean, I'm comparing this. Okay, so if I'm talking about the fish, I would like to compare that. You must have seen these videos of zebras, running in the African savannas. The lion is looking at the zebras, and the zebras are moving crisscross. You know what is actually the evolutionary significance of this? It is impossible for a normal brain to think about it. So I will give you an example. Take a disc, and on the disc you make black and white patterns on it, okay, and rotate the disc in front of your eyes. After just about half a minute, your eyes, your mind, your brain will feel dazzled and dizzy because the black and white movement confuses you totally. And that is what the zebras are doing in front of lions. When they are in a stampede and when they are just galloping around, the black and white stripes of the zebras cross in the arena of the lion's vision, and this totally confuses the lion, and that is what makes it very difficult for the lion to select its prey. And this is probably one of the evolutionary adaptations which can help a zebra to escape from its predator, the lion. Similar strategy is there in several shoals of fish which have these unique linings, and these linings therefore make the predator totally confused when they start moving helter-skelter. This picture is from the Andaman coral reefs that we proudly possess. Western Ghats. I mean, this is the fun of monsoon in the Western Ghats. So much of water trickles down from these ghats, which comes from deep penetrating forests. Like Bhima Shankar is the origin of the Bhima River, or Godavari is originating in Nasik. And so in India, there are 600 rivers which have origin in the deep forests, especially the Project Tigers. And so the carbon sequestration which is there in these forests, which is one of the strategies of combating global warming and climate change. I will come to that later on. And the collateral benefit of that is water, which is available in profusion perennially in all our rivers. So this is how, when we studied about the root hair in our 12th standard and in our degree science, these root hairs, which are tiny, tiny root hairs, I don't remember the exact statistics of if you lay down all the root hairs of a single tree, it covers the entire football court, the area, and so on. Yes, but imagine every root hair just has a small tiny droplet of water adhering to it, and the release of these water droplets happens almost throughout the year, and that is how these water droplets add on into the streams and the supplies of water. And here is where so many different species of reptiles, birds, mammals, insects, all these are present. Look at this gharial. The gharial, Gavialis as it is called scientifically. In Hindi it's called ghadial, and the word ghadial comes from the word ghada, and ghada is a pot. The males in the breeding season sport a pot-like extension, a swelling at the tip of the snout. Okay, so this is what is used by the males to attract the females. Now, this is an exclusively fish-eating crocodile. We have 3 species of crocodiles in India. Magar, that means freshwater crocodile. Estuarine crocodile, okay, saltwater crocodile, second one. And the third one is this one, what you see here, gharial. The young ones have clambered onto the back of their mother, taking this resting position and basking themselves on a cold morning, which our photographer Udyan Rao Pawar captured. I'm a part of Sanctuary Nature Foundation, and we get to see some of the best photographs which come from some of the most active photographers in India, who are some of them world famous, and we say that their photographs are a story which we use to fight battles of conservation and saving these animals for the posterity. So these gharials are the ones which are indicators of freshwater. They feed on freshwater fish, and pollution can bring their numbers down to a very large extent. I mean, look at this picture. When this person, Ripan Vishwas, won this competition, we said, the frog is looking at the the Milky Way, our galaxy, and other neighboring galaxies outside. And it is thinking that, oh my God, as a frog, as an amphibian, I've been on this planet since 400 million years. And that stupid human being on the left, you can see the light from that small structure out there. And he's saying that this stupid human being who has come just 2 million years ago, the modern human beings have come only 20,000 years ago. The wisest of the wise we call, sapiens means wise. So Homo sapiens, sapiens means the wisest of the wise. Whether we are wise or otherwise, that we have to see now. But the frog is thinking that, I'm here since 400 million years, and this idiotic creature who has come since only 2 million years is spoiling my water, is spoiling my grounds for breeding, is spoiling all my eggs, is eating my body in the form of flesh. So much of frogs were being exported to France and other countries during the frog leg export, which happened way back in 1970s, 80s, and huge amounts of frogs were massacred at that time. Okay, so in the conservation lesson, we need to understand that as long as nature's balance is restored, as long as these creatures are restored, which tell us that the water is now pure, and now we have enough numbers to cater to the well-being and the habitat restoration of these freshwater bodies and the breeding areas of the frog, till then we should not rest, and we must vehemently oppose any kind of exploitation of these frogs and other animals. I mean, this olive ridley turtle, this young buddy is coming out of its egg and walking down into the water to the seashore. The mother must have come on a full moon night. All of you know that on full moon night, when the high tide is at 12 o'clock, on full moon, which is 14th or 15th day of the moon, 3/4 of that is the high tide time. So 12 o'clock of 15 is 3/4, so around 12 o'clock is high tide. This is how my father taught me how to calculate high tide very easily on the west coast of India. Okay, and Odisha also, maybe the mother has come out when during the high tide it knows the mark up till where water can reach, and it has to go beyond that water mark to excavate a pit with the help of its flippers, leave about 110 to 120 small ping pong sized, table tennis sized balls, and then walk away into the sea. The males who have mated with her always remain in the sea. They never ever see the land. Now, due to temperature, the sex of the young ones is decided, and the lots of males and females which come out of this breeding, huge populations which are there, and there are several beaches on the east coast which have large number of these populations. A lot of photographs were circulated during the pandemic when people could not go, and because people could not go, nobody could collect the turtle eggs, which is a big delicacy in 5-star hotels, sold as turtle egg soup. And so we have these marine turtles who otherwise are at a big risk. All of them are endangered, and so we need to do something collectively. 2014, I'd been to Ladakh, and this is the picture that I captured from there. The brown-headed gulls. I mean, such a beautiful thing. These gulls, they migrate down south into the peninsular part of India. And this picture, which I took in the month of May, you will see these brown-headed gulls with those white mirrors, as Dr. Salim Ali used to say, in the wings, in the black wing tips, the white mirror that you see. They come down to peninsular India. You can see outside Mumbai, Haji Ali, Sassoon docks, everywhere. In winter, in November, December, January, almost till February. And when you take a boat ride to go to Elephanta or any of these places, all these gulls will follow you. Please, I'm not against any community. I'm not against any religion. I'm giving examples purely to tell about a certain incident. I was going to Gateway of India on 25th December 2020, last year, and I saw this gentleman who belonged to my community, a Gujarati, and he was throwing gathias at all these gulls who were coming in huge numbers around the gateway and feeding on those gathias. I was almost in tears. I felt like weeping. I prayed to him. I shut my hands and I told him, please don't feed human food to these birds. They are not supposed to eat oily food like gathias and chivdas and samosas and whatnot. People think that by doing this, they will get to a higher step to moksha or to God. They think that by feeding these birds like this, God will be very happy. But what about the birds? You're feeding them food items which are not healthy at all for them. Leave the animals alone. Leave them. They are not beggars. They can fend for themselves. They can feed on their own. And we are making them into beggars. I had to tell them, please, please stop this. So it's a humble request to all of you. If you have your neighbors or friends or relatives, if you see them anywhere, your small contribution to conservation, saving these birds, will be to educate them and tell them that their gut lining, their digestive system, their entire metabolic activity is not attuned to feed on all these things which human beings eat. Leave them to themselves. They will eat. If you want and if you can afford, then give them fruits, give them vegetables, give them all that. Give them natural food, but not processed food. at all. Okay, thank you. Lioness at Gir. I mean, again, I had gone to train forest department, around 240 officials in Gir year before last. And this small lioness which had come to a small water hole and feeding on the water. I mean, earlier, about 10 years ago, we had only about 280 lions live in a small expanse of 2000 square kilometers. Today, lions have grown in number. They are almost about 415 number, expanding their population to almost about 20,000 square kilometers. There are several villages. You might have seen these videos. When people have a nice sleep in the night, lions are roaming around on the streets of these villages, capturing small sheep, goat, cow, buffalo, dragging them into the fields and feeding on them. Fortunately, there is a very nice association and a very nice interaction with which they have not crossed each other's boundaries. Lions come in, they pick up their food stuff, they go away in the night, and they stay in outside the villages in huge collections of trees or under bushes and so on, and rest during the daytime there. And people, they say, okay, if a lion has killed one, cattle and so on, and there is, thank God, there is no big catastrophe or a human animal conflict which has come up till now. So we are very lucky. But yes, there are cases where we have identified in Madhya Pradesh a very suitable habitat for lions to be translocated. And there's a big discussion and a dialogue and an argument between the governments whether we should translocate them or not. Well, we have to see still. This lovely picture I could capture in Tadoba. I am a ardent photographer and a judge for photography, wildlife photography competition of Sanctuary, and that's how I get to see, I said, best of the pictures. But this picture I had captured. The wild pig or the wild boar had come to a water hole, and the wild dog, probably they were not hungry, or they were not in the mood of hunting a wild boar, or probably the wild boar had got very nice tushes, which are nothing but these outgrowing teeth, which can be highly dangerous for a small animal like wild dog. Alone, the wild dog can be susceptible or can be easily pulled down by a wild boar, but together in a pack of wild dogs can even attack and kill a tiger. Yes, you heard it right. And there are instances of leopards being killed by these packs of wild dogs. They are highly ferocious and aggressive. They attack on the hamstring muscles and they don't allow their prey to even stand still or even walk. And because of that, the prey cannot or can no longer walk and just succumbs or just comes down. And then they are so ferocious. I've seen the wild boar attack a sambar deer and bringing out all the intestine, even though the sambar was clambering on its four legs and trying to move away. So they are ruthless. And then in the monsoon, right now, all these land crabs which are there in the streams, they lay their eggs, they bring up their young ones, and in the entire cycle of events, annual cycle, they all bring up their young ones, and the adults, once they have finished breeding and when the winter approaches, they dig a hole and they get into the mud, the adults and the bigger ones, and then they have their own winter sleep and summer sleep, hibernation and or estivation. That's what they do. And these crabs, I mean, they are literally, you can say, the garbage collection vans, thereby assisting the municipality. I'm reminded of how when out of one of the 7 times that I've been to Lakshadweep, we had put down cots on the beach, and in the night, all the vegetable and the fish matter which the fishermen had left as a byproduct from the or bycatch from the nets, they had left it down, and in the night the crabs had come and they were feeding on that so that they can help for the biodegradation of all the dirt. We call it so-called dirty matter, but that is a food for the crab. So crabs, crows, vultures, all these are saviors of the ecosystem. Similarly, fungi and mushrooms, because they are the only ones which can convert a corpse or a dead and decaying plant and animal matter into some nutrition or some other compound, which then carries forward in the web of life and the chain, which is called as the food chain. So looking at biodiversity, I will now slowly talk about how our forests are extremely important for saving this biodiversity. In fact, forests are referred to as the gene bank. And what do you mean by the gene bank? So if tomorrow all the hybridized crops and all the varieties of plants that we have domesticated, okay, if even one of them has some kind of a bacteria or a viral infection, and if all of them die out, then we can go to Mother Nature, into a forest or into a gene bank like a grassland, where the native wild varieties exist of these crops or of domesticated cattle, sheep, goat, poultry. All of them have their origins in wild. I'm reminded of a case where 3 decades ago, there was a rusty stunt growth kind of a fungal infection, which was rampant all over the world. And it seemed as if the entire population, the entire rice all over the world would become extinct because this kind of infection was taking over. And then they discovered a small child during a forest trek in Orissa found a variety of rice. I forget whether it's Bihar or Orissa. I'm really sorry. But the small child with his teacher had gone for a trek. They found a plant which the teacher could identify that it was looking like a rice. And then they discovered it was a wild rice. They sent it to ICRISAT. And from ICRISAT, it went to International Rice Research Institute in Manila. And they said, wow, this has the wild gene for fighting against the rusty stunt, which is totally taking all over the world and creating a havoc among the rice plantations. So for each domesticated variety of plant and animal, we have wild varieties. These wild varieties have genes. These genes have the capability of tiding over infections and other possible we can say, like, for example, SARS and COVIDs and HIVs and so many other things with which we have to look at wild populations of human beings so that they will have the antibodies or the resistance to fight against such infections. So forests, natural grasslands are all gene banks, and these gene banks are also places where wild animals live. I am not going to teach religion to prophets here. You already know. I'm just using this slide to tell you how global warming is causing havoc. And mind you, I will just tell you, I was planning to go to Valley of Flowers and Hemkund Sahib in the first week of August next month, but because of the massive flooding which has happened in Dharamshala and several Himalayan places, and why that has happened, because the summer has been extremely intense. And what do you mean by an extremely intense summer? It means that glaciers have started melting even much earlier, and if they have melted much earlier, they are going to cause many more floods in the Himalaya. Please start praying from today that all our brethren who live in the Himalayas are safe. We don't know what is going to happen, and the calamities that these Himalaya are going to be facing too because of global warming, as you know, and these glaciers melting. I really pray for their survival as well as their well-being and their translocation to safer places and so on. The Gangotri Glacier, it's retreating. I mean, and because of this, what is going to happen is the wildlife habitats of animals like the snow leopard. I mean, it's called snow leopard because it lives among the snow. If the snow does not remain, then where is the leopard going to go? It's going to come down and down and down, and then it is going to enter into. May I please request somebody to mute yourself? There is some traffic sound coming in the background. please mute yourself. Thank you very much. So the snow leopard will find it extremely difficult to survive, and its prey base will also start down. And these beautiful sharks and species, okay, these are all the victims of the climate change. Yes, we have several answers to what we can do, alternatives to energy consumption and energy, you can say, utilization as well as creation. There are many. There are many. But we have to be really intelligent. If man is intelligent, intelligence means using your reasoning for the best possible ways of survival. Okay. So if you're going to put up these solar powered or these turbines or these, other kind of clean energy creating units everywhere, you have to be careful where you are going to create them. Okay. A kind of an analysis or a kind of an environment impact assessment, it's called EIA, needs to be conducted. There are several organizations and NGOs who do that. And with that, we can come to know what is the potential peril, danger, which can result after 5 years, 10 years, etc., etc. I mean, read about the dangers which high power lines have caused to the most endangered bustard, that is the great Indian bustard in India, in Kutch, and in other places in Rajasthan and Gujarat. And that is how we are now finding solutions. So it's like, we do something initially and then we discover, oh, we should not have done that. We should have done it this way, or we should have done it that way. And then it takes a huge amount of money to go back and to ameliorate all the possible dangers and the dangerous things that we have done to Mother Nature. Of course, clean energy also has its own problems, but it's like, we are behaving like ostriches, burying our heads in the sand, although that's a wrong thing. The ostrich never buries its head in sand. It's just that it just stoops down, I mean, it lowers its head, and because of the sand dunes, people feel that the ostrich has buried its head in sand, whereas actually it's just because there's a sand dune between you and the ostrich, you feel that the ostrich's head is buried in sand. So what is the proverb? The proverb means that you are hiding away from a disaster which is going to come maybe 10, 20, 30 years later. For example, what am I trying to draw your attention towards? Do we really know that solar power, ICs, computer chips, how to dispose them and how to take care of them? So we need to find these answers right from now. We don't have to wait for another 2 decades to then create a garbage and then don't know where to throw that garbage. My students used to laugh when I used to say, I'm sorry, I'm going to use this term here. Please pardon me for the unparliamentary proverb that I'm going to use. And that is, do not eat if you do not know where to shit. First, you create a toilet and then you eat food because you know eventually that you're going to shit. So the meaning is that we have to find out the answers right from the beginning. Okay. Acharya Rajneesh or Osho Rajneesh also used to say, keep the end in mind, keep the end in mind. That's very important, So yes, there are fishes which have been migrating. All these are case studies which are telling people who believe that global warming is just a possible threat that may never occur. We have good enough evidences to tell us that global warming is occurring even now, even today, and all of us are spectators to the effects of this global warming, but we are just being an ostrich and hiding our head. Chile has imposed a carbon tax, the president. I mean, these are all people who have gone a step further and they are trying to do things right from now. There are Tibetan glaciers which are shrinking, and they are already saying that there is going to be a catastrophe which is going to happen in the Himalayan ranges and everywhere wherever there's snow, which we now call as the third pole. And all these changes are huge and they are going to cause devastating effect to the entire mankind. Okay. I mean, There are instances of how even simple things like coffee is being changed, and there are fungal infections which are being caused to several species of condiments, breweries, you name it, and they are all coming up. Do we really know that whether COVID-19 was caused because of changes in temperature? So, as a virologist, people know that even 1 or 2 degrees change in a temperature globally can activate or can make dormant, okay, viruses, fungi, bacteria, and several microbes which are there all over the earth. We are really right now not knowledgeable to know every possible change that global warming can possibly cause. There are predators in the sea which are declining. There are issues which are not far away. Brahmaputra flooding. And you will see once again in July, August, September. Just wait for my talk to be over, and tomorrow you will read in the newspaper Brahmaputra flooding, Kaziranga flooding. Of course, in the historical past also, Kaziranga used to get flooded. But now the intensity, the rise, the level, and thereby the damage is fivefold, tenfold, 20-fold, and so on. And we are not yet equipped to fight all these changes which are happening everywhere. So the carbon level is rising. It's reaching 400 parts per million. And before this industrial revolution, we were at 280 parts per million. In our schools, we used to talk about the level of carbon dioxide in the air and so on. Please teach everybody around you what is a carbon calculator, not difficult at all, and how each family can just go to the carbon calculator. There are very easy sites. Just find out what is your own carbon footprint, and then try and see for yourself how you can reduce this carbon in every possible activity, right from brushing your teeth in the morning till going to bed at night. There are several activities which are resulting in carbon, either directly or indirectly. Emission, it could be the water pump which is bringing more and more water to your society tank upstairs, or transmission of water or transmission of power, electricity, food, water, clothes, everything needs carbon directly or indirectly. Okay, so we need to look at our own carbon footprint and thereby understand how we can decrease our carbon footprint and be a less burden on the environment. Never ever do I tell, excuse me, never ever do I tell that we are already born, we are a burden, but I'm not saying go back to the caves and start living there. No, enjoy the luxury, use your calculators, use your computers, use your television sets, but use them rationally and minimally as much as possible. I don't use an air conditioners. I don't need one. Okay, until and unless the guests are coming in the middle of May or something, only then I will switch on the AC for 1 hour, cool my room. So this is how we have to, I mean, that is what is conservation all about. Eating the interest, but keeping the capital as it is. Okay, eating the fruits, but not cutting the tree. That is what is conservation. So let's use the resources minimally. Let's use the resources judiciously. Okay, that's the important word. And then prove that we are intelligent by the rational and reasoning that we can do for everything around us. So yes, common plants and animals are also being affected. There are university studies which tell us about how rice yield has declined, not just all over the world, but even in India. And very soon we will see the effect on the commonest 5 crops on which 80% of the population depends all over the world. Rice, wheat, maize, jawar, bajra. Okay. And this is how we are decreasing the yield, and thereby climate change, it is resulting in lowering and lowering of the yields. And this is what will create not just problems for crops for us to eat, but indirectly is going to tell the tiger that you don't have a place to stay, get out. On the other hand, if the tiger starts venturing out, that is a lesson for us to think that something is wrong in our ecosystem because of which the tiger is coming out. And if the tiger is coming out, that is an alarm bell for us to think that something is going wrong. We'd better change the ways of our lifestyle, or at least modify our attitude in our day-to-day chores of lifestyle. Okay. So I think I have talked about this enough. Look at even the closest things that we have around us. Okay. And that's how we can look at the impact of this climate change on every possible organism, even in our Arabian seas and our jellyfish population. Some of the mammals have either become extinct or are at the verge of extinction because of some of the changes which have been caused in the barrier reef and so on. I mean, look at the entire, you can say, acidification of the oceans, and how the reefs and the corals have got bleached, and because of that, huge tracts of corals have died, and this is what is impacting animals which were living in the reefs. So I will end by saying that Sanctuary Nature Foundation, with which I am associated, we are helping the communities to fight against climate change. How? We are looking at how man-animal conflicts are resulting in bad lifestyle for the communities. After all, we are not talking about saving animals at the expense of the threatening of the life of the communities who are present in marginal lands, outside sanctuaries, national parks, and our reserves. First of all, we need to save these human beings who are more closer to our heart. And therefore, we are trying to garner support from communities. Thereby, we are changing the way in which they could survive. We are showing them alternative livelihoods so that their pressure on forests, so that their pressure on ecosystems, so that their pressure on other forms of livelihood which are directly or indirectly dependent on natural resources in forests or in nature reserves, etc. We can show them other means of livelihood. I have personally gone and trained several youngsters in Umred Karandla Wildlife Sanctuary, outside that at a place called Gothangaon, where we have trained them to become nature guides because they lost their livelihood, and so they can earn money in other ways and thereby become less dependent for their survival on the natural resources. Only then we can be sure that birds, wetlands, habitats can survive, and with that will also survive wild species of plants and animals. My paper was published in the journal, International Journal of Wilderness, and I talked about how it is called cocoon. Cocoon is an acronym. The cocoon, COCOON, is an acronym. Cocoon stands for Community Owned, Community Operated Nature Conservancy. The communities will keep on owning their land in those areas, in those places where the farmers have committed suicides. We are telling them that return the land to the forest, don't do anything, allow the forest to take over, because man with his stupidity cannot parallel monkeys, squirrels, birds, butterflies who know better how to plant trees. We have not learned the exact mechanism of planting trees in a better way. Leave all that to monkeys, squirrels, bears, and other forms of animals which can disperse the seeds from the forest to the outside. So we are calling this as a rewilding process, and this rewilding process is also called as ecosystem restoration. I am giving several talks all over India and the world about how ecosystem restoration is the future of tomorrow. We converted forests into croplands in the yesteryears. Can we return the non-productive croplands? I'm saying non-productive. Please, non-productive is underlined. Can we now give back the non-productive croplands back to nature and allow nature to restore itself, regrow itself, or rewild itself? Okay, we are not saying that agricultural prime areas must pledge their land and therefore convert them into forest. No. Okay, I'm very clear of what I'm saying, and this is how we can decrease man-animal conflict. Here is my training session for these youngsters whom I taught there. We also taught women folk to have alternative livelihoods like making lac bangles, pickles, papads, and so on. I'm sorry. And this is how in 2 years, grasses have started growing, trees have started growing. Behind you can see the forest. The forest trees have started overtaking on the grasslands, and this is how the forest will regenerate. So, to save animals, including our national animal, we need to understand that trees and plants are the only way that atmospheric carbon can be converted into organic carbon. This is called as carbon sequestration, and trees and plants are the only way where we can sequester carbon and we can save them. If you can plant a tree in your life, at least save trees from being chopped. Use your own compound, use your own daily route to travel, so that every day if you plant a sapling somewhere close to your house, your visual eyesight will tell you if the tree is under any attack. Okay, so this is how you can really come to know. Don't go 50 kilometers, 100 kilometers away and plant a tree and come back, because the moment you turn your back, a cow or a buffalo or a sheep or a goat may eat away the tree that you have planted with so much of care and protection, and nothing will stay there. So please leave that role to the monkeys. Of course, if there's a big problem, then you'll have to save, protect the landscape, give it some kind of a protection so that domesticated animals don't take away the natural vegetation or the plantation that you have done in your in that area. Okay, so these kind of conservation initiatives will help us to save. When you talk about, we can sanctuary tell save the tiger, but tiger is just a metaphor. Tiger can be a grasshopper, tiger can be a bug, tiger can be a snake, tiger can be a water body, tiger can be a lake, a river, anything. All these need to be saved, because the humans, because of the greed, not the need, the greed, because of the greed, we are resulting into the problems of wildlife deterioration and reduction. So look at your own self, look at the ways in which you can contribute by saving in your workplace or at your house. Electricity, protecting trees, reducing the fossil fuels, help directly or indirectly saving the tiger and the forest. Become a part of an NGO, or at least support an NGO which is locally present near your house, wherever you are. You may be in Timbuktu, you may be in Jhumri Talaya, you may be in Assam, anywhere, wherever you are. Identify an NGO and start supporting the NGO, so that if you know that the NGO is creditable and is taking active interest in becoming apolitical and a-religious. That is very important. The NGO must not have any vested interest in any politics, nor should be associated with any religion. First, identify that. And if the NGO is talking about issue-based conservation locally, then support it. Also support actions and government stand on saving certain areas wherever they are. Again, not becoming a victim of religion or politics. That is the worst thing to happen. So be very conscious about issue based conservation action. Okay, this is how we can all be a responsible citizen. And I think we all, I was, as sir said, I was given the Green Teacher Award. I'm quite green, but everybody needs to bring their own shade of green. How green you can become, I don't need to tell you. You need to understand your own lifestyle. You need to see how you can tweak, modify little bit of your lifestyle and make a little bit green. Last 13 years when I was a vice principal, I used to cycle down every day to college. Salman Khan and all these people are even cycling now. But I used to cycle 13, 14 years ago to my college, and people used to say, vice principal coming to college on a cycle. I used to say, yeah, 6th pay commission doesn't give me enough money to buy a vehicle. But then they realized that I'm trying to be as healthy and as fit as possible by driving on a cycle today, even at the age of 62, I don't have spectacles, no contact lenses because of my bird watching habit, which I started with Dr. Salim Ali 45 years ago. And this hobby and good nutritious food, eating every vegetable and every fruit which is locally available and seasonally available. I'm sorry, I'm cramming too many things. I tell my students, eat your grandmother's food, don't eat your mother's or father's prepared food. Okay, so this is how we can be healthy, and this is my way of being a healthy person. I think I'm not taking any medicine, no blood pressure, no diabetes, touch wood, which is the wood head that I have, in a little bit of conservation that I'm trying to. So yes, your own lifestyle. I don't think I need to tell you all this. You all know this very well. So if I have any questions and if I have the answer, I'll be very, very happy to answer.
So thank you so much for a wonderful and beautiful presentation with a lot of beautiful pictures conveying strong messages to every one of us.
I'm sorry if I have spoken like a teacher, but I just went with the thing, because if you are not my student, it's perfectly fine. But start talking about this to your neighbors, to your friends, to your to your relatives, everybody. Only if we talk, then we can share our ideas. And whatever I have spoken, if you find that if there is anything wrong, please correct me. Please let me know. I am not just a teacher. I am also a student with my mistakes. I don't mind you telling me, sir, this was not right. Please, that is not correct. And please correct me if I'm wrong. I will definitely would like to know. And I will, with due apology, say that this is where something was wrong. And let's all learn what is the best way that we can, be a less burden on nature, as I said. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Absolutely okay, sir. No problem. And I'm sure the audience will be having a lot of questions to you.
Sure.
And your messages will be taken care by everyone, I am sure. So it is up to the audience. If you have any doubt, it's up to, you can go for a discussion session now.
Yeah, my usual habit is looking at the chat. There are no questions yet. It's only compliments. So fine, I won't read the compliments. Thank you very much for the compliments. Yeah, if there are questions and if you'd like to either put it in the chat box, I'm very used to it, or you can unmute yourself. Please switch on your video and ask your question. No problem at all.
Actually, it is not a question, sir. Like you were saying, I apologize if you feel I am lecturing. Sometimes lecture is required for people to understand. So, although it wasn't a lecture, but it was more of advice and more of appeal to save the biodiversity. But even if it was lecture, it would have been fine.
If it was lecture and advice, I would, in front of all the gurus, I'm catching my ears.
No, sir. But it was really eye-opener, though we know many of the things, but some of the facts you presented, they were really eye-opener. And like with increasing population, there is going to be more pressure on biodiversity. So as you were mentioning, that community-based conservation is the best way. In fact, in Gir area, I have been to Gir area, and there also I see that how villagers are involved in the protection of these things. So and under these increasing population and all those things, I think community involvement is very much needed. And of course, each one of us has to do our bit to save the biodiversity. And I really thank you very much. From at least from my side, it was, for me, it was very enlightening talk. Thank you very much.
My pleasure. I can see a question. Oh, it's only.
Hello.
Yeah, go ahead, please.
Yeah, sir, I wish to know from you,
Yes.
as we are young in starting our research program, so before starting any research projects, considering the climate change and proposed changes in our ecosystem, what are the 2 or 3 points you suggest us so that we can keep in mind before proposing any program or before going for any interventions?
Excellent question. Thank you so much for asking this. I have spent a lot of years in training teachers at international schools, and there we talk about the independent and the dependent variables. So when we are devising a research project and when we are looking at the independent variables and the dependent variables, we must see the environment impact when we devise a project of what environmental impact it's going to have. So there are several parameters which I would like to quickly touch upon whenever we write a research project. Environment impact assessment of my project, number one. Second, ethical implications. How my project is going to affect the society, people, culture. We are all living in India. We cannot renounce our culture. Ethos, ethos and ethics comes from society and culture. We all make rules. So we should not do something which is unethical, something which our conscience will bite. So our research project must be such that our conscience must not bite at the end of the project. Whatever we are producing or whatever byproduct or waste material that we are producing out of the research project, we must use raw materials which are biodegradable, also processes and mechanisms which are easy and under human and nature's control. It should not go out of our hand. We should not throw something out and say, that is not my problem, you take care of it. It's like, sweeping your broom to the outside and throwing all your garbage outside and saying, Mera kachra tumhe mubarak ho. My dust and my garbage is yours. No. So that is a very important aspect. The other thing in research methodology, which people forget, is to look at the entire procedures which are hampering our already established old processes and procedures. Look at what we have done in all these cases and patenting of neem and Ayurvedic medicines and products and medicines and so on. What have we done? We have gone against Charaka, all these famous sages and so on. The Western country, the German scientists had to tell us that Sushruta used to cure and treat by surgery with this leaf drawing that he used to do 4,000 years ago on a nose and so on. Now they are teaching us. I mean, what have we come to? So when you are devising a research project, I am telling all the children of today, learn Sanskrit, because Sanskrit has so much of old database. When I was studying my PhD in Ruya College, my friend Babli will tell, my professor Dhole had shown me a book on treating elephants in enclosure, 200 medicines written in Sanskrit called Gaja Shastra. Old books and old things. Don't think of it. I'm not talking about religion. I'm talking about a language where in old scriptures, if a German researcher could sit in Germany in a library and read in the old Sanskrit literatures and look, he was a Christian. He's reading about Sanskrit, all these old scriptures and going back and reading about how surgery used to be performed 4,000 years ago on war victims when the nose was cut. I mean, let's break the barriers of religion and of politics, as I said. Okay, so look at where treasures are available, and from these treasures can we devise our new methodologies, our new research strategies, our new processes and procedures, whereby we can make a fantastic revolutionary new discovery.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Sir, I would like to ask you one question.
Please.
You, in the last of your presentation, you told non-productive agriculture land, let it convert it to forest.
Yeah.
So to the one side, we have the a big huge population to, so that you have to support the population, you have to increase the productivity.
Yes.
So for increasing the productivity, a lot of fertilizer, pesticide, everything we are using in the agricultural production. So do you think really the agriculture is creating a problem for this biodiversity? This is my one question. Second question, when you tell about the biodiversity, it will come to your mind animals and plants or forest. It will come to your mind. but there are a huge biodiversity as far as the microbes are concerned. So are we mistaken the concept of biodiversity totally?
Sir, you have hit the nail. Absolutely, you have hit the nail. Unfortunately, what happened is industrial revolution and agricultural green revolution taught us to use pesticides, which were chemical pesticides. This is the most unfortunate thing which has happened. We could have had organic methods of fighting against pests. We could have had organic methods. We could have had integrated pest management, now which is being taught in schools and colleges. Use very little chemical of only certain substances, okay? But otherwise, see what has happened is, to save, let's say our yield was 70%, 60%, okay? We were losing 20, 30% to pests. To save that 30%, we have put our life to danger by using chemicals. Please have a look at the movie called Poison on Your Platter, produced by Mahesh Bhatt. Okay, it is telling that how GMOs and all kinds of pesticides are there in the bags, like brinjal, cucumber, tomatoes and all. They are nothing but a bag full of pesticides. So we are all having pesticides in our fruits, vegetables, everywhere, whatever we are growing. I'll go back to my original sentence again now today. For saving 30% or 40% of the yield, we have endangered our life by using chemicals. Had we allowed those pests to eat and still got 60%, what would have been our strategy today? We would have had still 60% crops. We would have had 40% loss to the pests, but we would have not had chemicals in our fields. And these very same chemicals are changing the biome of the soil. They are affecting the microbes in the soil. We have changed the flora and fauna, bacteria, microbes, fungi in the soil. And these soil organisms are extremely important for managing the entire agricultural crops and what we get as a yield. So this is first part of your question, that today we are having so many mouths to feed. Are we going to stop agriculture and return the forest to land? No. Once again, I say that in those areas where the agricultural belts became unproductive, when did they become unproductive? Look at the central Maharashtra. What happened? In the last 20 years, so many farmers have committed suicides. Why? Because they could not get any agricultural yield. On the other hand, because of the huge bank loans and all kinds of debts, they had no money to even survive. At that time, had they allowed the biodiversity to prosper and use the biodiversity to attract tourists or to have some kind of a negotiation between crops and biodiversity and so on, they would have grown some crops and allowed nature to flourish also. See, earlier we used to have not a monoculture. Today we are all doing monoculture in an agricultural crop. Earlier we used to have a heterogeneous culture of plants and animals. And these heterogeneous plants used to allow a integration of plants whereby the soil never became impoverished. Today monoculture is sucking away the same nutrients and the same things more and more and more if the same plant is grown. But if you have a diversity, if you have a variety, then some plants will add into the soil some nutrients, and this organic waste which is produced by the death of the plants or by the roots remaining inside can add on to the organic nutrients and the decomposition which adds on to the bacteria and so on. It's a very it's a very intricate cycle, very delicate cycle, which we haven't even understood. Today, scientists from abroad are telling us that trees are communicating between themselves through the roots in what is called as mycorrhiza, under the roots. So forget about the aerial transmission of mobile towers that we have. Trees already have under the roots, and they are established millions of years ago. They are communicating with each other. They are telling each other, hi, how are you? What's happening? A woodcutter is coming. Please start secreting enzymes or protective substances, which are chemicals which will protect you from the hacking of the woodcutter who is coming, and so on. Can you imagine? This is all the communication which is happening. And these trees have evolved 100 million years ago, 150 million years ago, much before mankind even thought of coming on this earth. So there's a very famous book which, pardon me, I don't remember this authors and so on, but he said that are human beings using the plants and trees, or are trees using the human beings? Is the mango tree using animals so that the seeds can be dispersed? So what the mango is doing is, the mango tree is very intelligent within inverted commas. Mango tree is intelligently producing a fruit so that a monkey or a human being will eat, will remove the seed and will throw it out so that a new mango plant can grow. So the tree is using the animals, not the other way around. That is how evolution has made them super intelligent organisms on this earth. The grasses are some of the most intelligent organisms on this earth. Intelligent within inverted commas. They don't have a brain. But without the brain, they are dominating human beings and dominating animals. This is a very fertile thought that I've put in your minds. It's worth a discussion and a debate, by the way. But this is how scientists are arguing, that what are we doing? We think human beings are the most intelligent. Look outside. The tree outside your house is controlling you, not the other way around.
Okay, sir. Thank you so much for enlightening us. Anybody else to ask any questions? So there is one question in chat box.
Oh, I didn't see. I'm so sorry. Countries like Singapore and all are bringing forests to cities. Can you suggest few NGOs working in this direction in India, generally, and Pune specifically, if any? I think there are lots of NGOs which are creating Miyawaki forests and several other forms of forest. That is vertical plantation. You can practice whatever you feel like, but as a oldie, I would say, I'm missing all those days when I could throw a stone on a mango and bring the mango fruit down. Today the children can't even aim. They have lost the power of rational and intelligent decision. How far is the mango and what should be the physics of the stone throw that I'm using in my hand? These plays, I mean, I'm very happy to see some people who are belonging to my age group. I mean, they don't play marbles, they don't play gilli danda, they don't play lagori, they don't play all these sports. And I mean, these were the sports which gave us the analytical capabilities. With the gilli danda, you ask a child of today, very simple thing. Ask a child to stand at the corner of the room and tell that child, what is the length of this room? Ask him. Can he stand there and tell you this room is 10 feet long or 20 feet long or 30 feet long? Impossible. Children of today don't even know how to measure with their eyes. And we know how to measure with their eyes because we played gilli danda, we used to play marble and all these sports.
Hi, Parvish, can I ask a question?
Yeah, just one minute. I'll just finish. So yes, there are lots of NGOs in Pune, in Bombay. They are doing afforestation. But as I said, please do local plantation only. If you have a compound, if you have your walkway, if you have the road, every day you're walking, if you see a bare patch, okay, barren patch, plant a fruiting tree, let the birds enjoy, let the bees enjoy, let the butterflies enjoy. Plant an endemic tree. If you are living in Pune, find out trees which can grow in the Western Ghats of India. Select only those trees. Allow the birds and the monkeys to have their fruits. Let the children enjoy the the shade of really Indian Western Ghat, Pune or Mumbai specific tree. Okay. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. Please, Dr. Badli.
I just want to know your opinion on this thing about bonsai growing of plants. I find it so.
Yeah, her question was about whether bonsai, what is my view on bonsai? Okay, I'm saying that we cannot decide what gives pleasure to the human mind. If I love to take care of a bonsai, then if that gives me pleasure, then that is their take on it. When I used to be in school and college, I used to tell people, if I want to keep a child as a child for 60 years, will I cut the fingers and the toes of the child every month, every year, so that the child's height does not increase? That is the example I used to give. When you want to grow bonsai, what you're doing is you're cutting the edge, the ends, and you're not allowing the tips to grow. Okay, but then the other part is that by doing that, you're allowing the bonsai, small bonsai, to produce a flower, to produce a fruit. I have seen people have 2 feet high orange tree having small miniature oranges on them, a bonsai orange tree. Now, if I love to grow bonsai, if I can't have a huge compound or a huge garden to grow a mango tree or an orange tree, and if I grow a bonsai inside my house, I don't think there is any reason that anybody else can decide whether it is good or bad. My argument is very simple. It's like I seek my mental pleasure by walking in nature. Yesterday also I had a forest walk just close to my house. Okay. And I love to do that. Or I love music. But somebody else might like to play golf. Somebody else might like to watch TV. Somebody else might have pleasure in doing something else. To each one to himself. You can't say the way that you get pleasure is the only way that you can get pleasure. There are various ways of getting pleasure. Let each person get the pleasure in the ways that they find it comfortable. Fine. But understand what you are missing. That is very important.
If anybody is having any questions, one more question we can have. Yes, if there is no question, let us conclude. Sir, thank you so much for giving a wonderful presentation and giving a deep insight on biodiversity conservation. I am sure everyone has taken message from this presentation. So now I request our scientist colleague, Dr. Ajay Sharma, to deliver his official word of thanks. Sir, Sharma sir, please.
Thank you, Dr. Sabir Ahmed. Good evening, everybody. Presently, climate change is burning issue worldwide. People are observing the effects of climate change in different ways. Same time, we are losing biodiversity also. Very sensitive issue in present time. On behalf of the NRC Graves family, I am very thankful to Dr. PARVIsh Pandya sir for delivering a wonderful lecture. Every picture arranged in the presentation was self-explanatory, described own experiences and related to ecosystem. Really, sir, very wonderful. Sir, you covered very important aspects of many things, but many things were new to me also. No words to comment on this lecture. I was fully attached with every word of lecture today. You deserve for big hands, sir. Conservation of forest has paramount importance in conserving biodiversity, not only plants or animals, but microbial biodiversity also. Very strong and clear message from your side. It is time to work hard for conserving biodiversity and opt alternate energy resources to save our beautiful planet. I am thankful to Dr. R.G. Somfort, Director, and Dr. Madhav Upadhyay, who constantly supported this event. I am grateful to Dr. Sujay Saha, who was instrumental in arranging today's event. Dr. Sabir Ahmed arranged this meeting in very good manner, deserves for thanks. Our meeting becomes successful when the message penetrates to more and more audiences. I am thankful to all of you
who connected with this lecture through Zoom, Facebook Live, or YouTube also. So I am very thankful, all of you. Thank you, sir.
Thank you all. Thank you very much. And I would like to just end with one sentence. I hope I will make people aware of that also. And that is, only two people in the world can enjoy life and be happy. Who are these two people? Either a mad person or a child. And I am a combination of both.
Yes, sir.
Thank you so
I
much.
hope I
Sir.
have transferred my madness to all of you. Thank you so much.
Sure,
Thank
sir.
you, sir. Thank you.
Okay, sir. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you all. Have a great evening.
Yeah.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.